Welcome to the Extra Time Podcast, where you'll hear sports stories you might not have heard about from people you might not have heard of. Let's get into this week's show. Things I put up with.
Welcome into another episode of the Extra Time Podcast, and we are a happy team in Extra Time today. Well, at least one half of the desk is. Myself, Aidan Box, as always with my great friend Mark Woods. So happy on this end. The mighty Fighting Hawks, I tell you what, 2 in a row, but not only 2 in a row, Woods. The Extra Time Cup premiers, baby. I've whipped up the special Premiership Cup, bit of a homemade job, Woods, and you can just hold that one for me. Hold that L. Your Sainers did not take it out. It was the Hawks who took out the Extra Time Cup for the first edition. How's that make you feel? Anything to say about that?
No. I'll rock up.
Save it for later.
You know what? I'll just go. I'll rock up halfway through the podcast as a true St Kilda performance, and I've got a bit to say, and I won't start now because as soon as I start, you probably won't get me ending. But
We don't want to keep Lorenzo too long. You're right, and I know I could go on for about 4 hours talking about how good we are, and you could do the same.
Next week, I believe Simone Wern and you can have the Hawthorn edition. This is what we should have done this week. I really think that Simone, when you're available, come in, just let Boxy just chat Hawthorn for a few hours.
That I could do, and again, I'm happily and very proudly wearing my Hawks gear. It is the Legends Edition jersey, which is one of my favourite jumpers from the recent years. This one's from a couple years ago. It's actually got the number 44 on the back, which was Jai Newcomb's when he came into the competition. It's obviously now Henry Hustwaite, who's also a star in his own right. So I don't really mind. I might get another one with the number 3 because I do love the way that Newt goes about it. But like I said, very proudly wearing that today. A new hat. I don't usually wear this hat. I usually wear my Country Road hat. Trusty Country Road hat. Today I've got my Clothing the Gap hat with, of course, the flag, and that is for, of course, it's Sir Doug Nicholls around in the AFL. But more importantly, I've worn this hat every day for the last 75 days. You haven't seen it on the podcast, but that is because I've been doing a couple workouts every day for 45 minutes, one outside every day, and that is for the 75 Hard Challenge, which has a set of rules, and you have to commit and do them every single day. If you miss any of them, you start from the start. It's been very tough, but I'm not here to pump my own tyres and say, I did this, how good is this? I did complete it today. But I wanted to talk about how much it's improved myself, because I feel like a lot of the time we share things around our Instagram stories and post things about blokes being vulnerable, talking about when they're struggling, but you never actually see too many people actually going out and saying it. So I thought, I'm on a podcast, I've got a lot of people that watch, and I might as well bloody talk about it. Because, mate, I was bloody awful. I don't want to swear, I don't want to get emotional here, but 75 days ago, I was thinking I'm useless. I'd been let go from a job. I thought my life had hit a fat dead end. I had my imposter syndrome come back. I felt like I wasn't an adult. I wasn't a real man. And I felt like, to be honest, there was a couple times where Sophie, my partner, had to sort of stop me from thinking it'd be better if I wasn't here at all. So I thought I need to commit to something. I committed to the 75 hard, and for years, as somebody who loves sport, I'd committed to the gym, but I wouldn't last a week, 2 weeks, wouldn't last a month. But this commits you for 75 days, and bloody hell, it's hard. Some days you get up and you're like, I just don't want to do it. I can't do this. It's too much. It's freezing outside. I've got to go down the oval. But I went there because once you commit to something, it improves you. And from 75 days ago to now, I can't even explain to you how much clearer I am. It's saved my bloody life. And it's as simple as that. And I'm not saying you need to come out here and do that. You don't have to. But I kept showing up and I struggled. And that's the main thing. Commit to something and opportunities will turn your way. And you just got to keep showing up and keep doing it. It might not be doing the 2 workouts. It might not be doing 75 hard. It might be just waking up before the sun comes up. It might be reading a book. It might be, doing something, getting out in front of a camera, speaking to how you're feeling, updating your friends each day, checking on your mates each day. Do something that makes you real bloody uncomfortable and do it for a set amount of time. Do it for a couple of months and don't miss. because when you miss, you get comfortable again. You don't make any progress from that. One of the rules is that you got to read a book, and I've read some three pretty powerful books. I read Ned Brockman's first, and if you know about Ned, his main thing is he just shows up every single day. The bloke ran 100 Ks a day for over 40 days from one side of the country to the other. He showed up. It was hard for him. He wasn't comfortable. He's about to run another, 100 Ks, 10,000 Ks or whatever it is around an athletics track. He taught me to keep showing up, and that's what I did. And if you guys keep showing up, trust me, it doesn't matter what your challenge is that you set yourself, no matter what hole you're in. Firstly, we're here for you. Please message me, message the podcast, because I'll help anybody. Because, man, being in a shit spot, there's nothing worse. Like, I couldn't sleep. Like, I didn't want to be around, and now I could not be happier every day when I wake up. I felt like I was caught at a red light, and I read Matthew McConaughey's biography, which is called Green Lights, and he inspired me to back myself to sacrifice. Don't take all the easy opportunities that come. There were so many job opportunities I took, but I said, no, I'm completing this challenge. I'm committed to this. He did a similar thing. He just declined so many movie offers when he wanted to just do a certain sort of work. And he ended up doing that for about a year and a half, sacrificing money and a future because he wanted to do this, and he was so successful afterwards. Like, he won an Oscar. So that taught me to just don't accept everything, sacrifice, because if you want to get somewhere, commit, get uncomfortable. And that's what David Goggins' book has taught me. Lastly, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to callous your mind. You're not going to get control back of your head, which was my main thing. I had this voice in my head, and it would always win. And I would have outbursts that made my partner really, really uncomfortable. Nearly lost, I lost control. I didn't want that. And now, from committing to this, being uncomfortable for 75 days, every single day, hating it at times, I've now have my control back, and I feel like I've never been more myself and never been more a man. And I can't speak higher of that. But it's because I made these sacrifices, and I hit a goal, but I set the goal, and I knew that I was going to get there no matter what. And I talked about this for way longer than I wanted to, but it's so important. And like I said before, I just wanted to get it through to you guys that if I inspire even one of you who is not doing too well mentally, or they're not as healthy as they want to be, and they don't feel like they can talk to anybody, if I even inspire one of you just to either reach out or set your own goal and start your own challenge and commit, show up, push through the red lights and find your green lights, and then get control back of your head, you can achieve things that are just remarkable. Like, from the start of this year, when I got lost out of the job I was in, I didn't think I'd ever achieve anything again. I didn't think I'd ever achieve what I wanted to again. And now I've achieved things over this last few months I can't even explain. I've done things that I didn't even think I could ever do. Like, I've worked out for twice a day for 75 days, and I barely ever used to do that. So it's rewarding beyond explanation, but it's because I did it outside my comfort zone. And I know it's a cliche and people hate hearing that. Trust me, I hated hearing that as well. But I want to thank my mate Tague, my best mate, who started this challenge before me, and he inspired me to do it. And I used to hate people that did stuff like that, because I'm like, oh yeah, they say get uncomfortable, but I like being comfortable. Everybody does. I get it. But I'm not saying, you need to go out there and run 50 Ks every day, because that's uncomfortable to everyone, sure. I'm just saying, do something that's slightly uncomfortable for you, and then keep doing it, because at one point you'll get there and you go, I'm actually seeing huge gains here. If I keep doing this, I might burst through. Because trust me, from reading these books, listening to these people, and listening to myself and where I've got to, from the depths of bloody hell, the greatest things you'll ever achieve all come from pushing yourself further than you used to. So keep doing that. I can't encourage you to do that enough. And I'm not pumping myself up here at all. I want you guys to know that you can speak to me, speak to Woods. Please do. My, personal socials, the podcast socials are always linked. And I'll promise I'll help each and every one of you. And I promise that if you really try hard enough, set yourself a goal, commit, show up, you'll get control back again, and you'll never feel better, because no one deserves to feel as shit as I did. and I know that a lot of people are. So I wanted to get that off my chest. I don't want to share it with you guys because it's been a mega thing that I've undertaken, but it's very, very important because humans, every single one of them, are powerful beyond measure, but you're never going to find out how powerful you are until you push yourself beyond your limit. And that's what I did. But something that also is probably playing above its limits is the AFL season this year, Woods. And I know it's a bit of a weird segue after I got a bit deep there, but I'm going to bring you back in because we had round 9 over the weekend and it was a pretty good one.
Yeah, it was. There was a few close games and a few not so close games. And as I said, obviously the result went your way. And we'll discuss that, I'm sure, a bit later. But let's look at the other matches. Started off on Thursday night with Carlton overcoming Melbourne by a solitary point. Carlton had the run of the game for about the first half or so, as Christian Petrarca might have been the only Melbourne player out on the field. I'm not so sure about where the other players are. They might have been doing a Boxy and showing up late.
It was actually, I was late today. Bit of a train issue, not my fault.
But you had your excuse. You did the 75 hard as well. So hopefully next week, though, we can...
I'll be on time. Yeah, I'll be on time. Just half an hour later than on time. But no, it was a great round, and I thought that game kicked it off beautifully, set the tone beautifully. It was a bit of a finals rehearsal with all 4 sides that started the round in the top 8 playing each other. I thought the intensity was awesome. Obviously, coming off the back of Anzac Day, a bit of a rivalry round the round before, and then that. The intensity of the league right now is phenomenal. All games included. There were some electric ones, and you mentioned that Thursday night one was electric. It was a little bit wet, so it was a little bit scrappy at times, but that's when a Christian Petrarca just licks his lips and gets his hands dirty, because in that first half, like you said, it was just the big men of Carlton, like De Koning, Mackay and Curnow just looked like they could not be stopped. And we're not talking about, like, they're not playing on slouches. They're playing on Lever and May, two of the best, and they just took him to the cleaners. And then Christian just thought, well, if Gorney's not going to pull us out of this, if Clayton's not going to pull us out, I will. And he kicked 4 or 5, I think, and he literally was the difference. That's an overused term, but he was the difference for Melbourne, and he did everything he could with 5 goals won. Just couldn't get him over the line in the end, but it's another thriller, and they always play them, these two sides. The final last year was obviously a belter, and the Blues got it done to win the belt, which we'll mention later. And the next one was down at the Cattery.
Now, I want to jump in here because this is a team, Geelong were playing against a team that I'm guessing you wouldn't have known because you banished them last week.
We won't speak of them. I'll let you do that.
But I think you better unbanish them because I think this is the first time in a while, and I'll have to, when you talk about the game, I'll quickly pull up the stats to confirm this. But they actually ended up with a positive goal kicking, 15-11. So Port Adelaide, welcome back to the competition. I'm sure Boxy will be love talking about you right now.
Yeah, well, the Cats just, they were celebrating Tomahawk too much in the rooms before the game, and they gave up the jump. I think they gave up something crazy like 4 or 5 goal head start, which in this year's game of AFL, when you're 8 goals to 3 down at quarter time, it's going to be monumentally hard to come back. Come back they did, but the head start was too much in the end. They just got beaten off the blocks, and they tried to make it up in the last leg of the relay there, but they just couldn't. It was an electric finish, though. Very, very much enjoyed the finish to this game. At quarter time, I wanted to turn it off because the team that was winning is a team I didn't want to see win because I didn't think they deserved it. But they played some great footy. The Cats, I'm not really worried about them. I think they'll definitely still contend. And it is a little bit of a worrying one because it did happen in Geelong and they don't lose there much, and it was against another team in the top 8. But it's an interesting game, another electric one like I mentioned. And then later in that night, on Friday night in the doubleheader, we headed over to Perth, to Optus Stadium, and it was a bit of a special game in a way, a bit of a somber game in a way, as the Dockers hosted Sydney. The Dockers went down by 48 points, but it wasn't really about that for them because a lot of them lost a great mate that morning. They heard the news, which is, I can't even explain in words how tough that would be. And the pictures before the game when they lined up for the tribute, which I think is going to be, something around our photo of the week, but the pictures of Alex Pearce and Nat Fyfe in tears.
So that's the photo of the week. There's after the game, Nat Fyfe and Pearce walked to the goal square with flowers in hand and display some there in the goal square. But
That showed to me that these are real men because
it was a reminder.
they're not robots, mate.
Yeah.
And back in the day, people would have been expected. They would have expected them to go, "Oh, Alex, you're the captain. You don't have emotion, mate. Go up there and lead your men to a win."
Yeah.
I could not speak any bloody higher of Alex Pearce. Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed. And that will sound so weird, but the bloke was crying because he lost one of his best mates. And that is what a real man does because you're allowed to feel that. You're allowed. She shouldn't have even had to have played, but that's the business side of it.
I think it's a reminder.
The tribute after was so touching, and they lost by 48 points. But like I said, that's not what it's about because for those men to go out into battle against the best team in the league that night after losing one of their best friends that morning is something I'll probably never forget because that was just touched me because it's just special. It was a special performance from them, and Alex played a great game. So did Nat and the rest of them. And rest in peace to Cam. He was a phenomenal player, and by all reports from everyone I heard talk about him over the weekend, an even better man, a beautiful, beautiful man. And he just wanted to get better. He wanted to enjoy his footy. And this is what I was saying before. You just got to, you can post all you want, mate, but you got to actually go check on your mates.
Yeah.
And be closer than you actually are. Who gives a toss if it's a bit weird for your relationship, if it's not normal for your relationship, if you're not that close usually? If it's your best mate and you want him in your bloody life, talk to him.
Yeah. I think it's very much a reminder of the humanity of football. Remember in 2015 when Phil Walsh was murdered, and basically that was on the weekend. I'm pretty sure they might have been playing that night on the weekend. The game was cancelled, and I had this discussion with a good friend of the podcast, Noah Fisher, about how what's the mindset? How can you actually take the field, and could a game be called off or that? I'm like, at the end of the day, I think that the mental side of things, the mental health side of things, there's more to life than football.
Exactly right.
At the end of the day, no matter what you think you're writing, whether you're frustrated, and I see it a lot on forums where, being a Saints fan, a lot this week, given the Hawks-Saints game, and a lot of the people are so negative on the players. And I think I've got a rule that I'll never post something, social media, regarding any player, because I don't know what is going on. I don't know what the messages are. I don't have all that information. But at the end of the day, the person I'm speaking about, I've got no idea what they're going through. They're human. I can sit here and say I'm frustrated at people turning the ball in football actions, but
it's a game.
What I see on Facebook and Facebook groups is people going beyond that. And I think it's just a reminder that you've actually got to be very careful in what you say about players. Keep it to an on-field action on, Aiden Box, the turnover in the second quarter. But I can remember calling, or not so much me calling, but joining in because of, I think I would have done it. But I'll use Zach Dawson as the example of the Spud when he retired, leave the Spud out and social media thing. I'm like, I feel ashamed of doing that and thinking about it because of, it was just, he actually was a good footballer, but people think he's bad because of Ross Lyon's love child or whatever. But hold on, go back to it again. He played the role that Ross Lyon actually wanted. He was that puzzle piece for the teams that he played for. He was a key thing. I'm like, this is what we've got to look at. If you make it to the AFL, you're top 500 in your craft, or top, you're the high top 1% or whatever it is of the
Yeah.
people that are playing, you're like, you're still human. You still make mistakes, and
They're just
you're not a robot, as you said earlier, and the motion side of it and all that. It's like it's just a reminder on multiple avenues that it's the criticisms you make of players to not make it too personal, to not okay, they make a mistake on field, and it's like okay.
it's
I was saying earlier in our before the podcast about it frustrates me about St Kilda, and I'll go into it later. But it's like I find it I'm not singling out players, and I haven't done for years because of one player doesn't lose games. One action doesn't lose a game. As much as people think the final action or something doesn't lose a game, but there's 80 plus minutes of a game of football. And to whittle it down to the person who made a mistake right at the last second, you're negating everything else that's happened. And I think it's just what you're saying is a reminder not to put the weight onto one person. Like, it's 22 people carrying, as you keep on mentioning who's going to carry the logs and the boats. And I'll actually say it this time, when you put all the logs and the boats onto one person, and the logs and the boats in this is negative comments, right? I don't think somebody can actually carry that. I think when you put it on a team, and I'm talking about the 22 players on the field, the coach, the sub, the support staff, they're able to wear that.
they can carry it.
Yeah. Like, you're able to carry it. It's your job to do it as a club.
It's interesting as well because there's not many other jobs in the whole world that are like sport, because the players, the athletes are so unique, because there's no other job in the world really where the whole public can criticise how good they are at their job, and they are free to do that. Like, it's not like, you go into work as an accountant
I'll go into everybody else's workplace and just criticise.
Yeah.
Watch them for the time that they're at work, and every time they make a mistake, it's highlighted out and why can't?
And you can cop criticism and stuff like that from inside your industry, but like athletes can cop it from left, right, and centre anywhere around the world. So that's what they have to deal with. So you're right, just treat them like humans, because at the end of the day, they're just doing a job, which is to play a game. A few NBA players in Josh Hart and Kyrie Irving said it really well during the week. Obviously, the playoffs are on at the moment. I'll digress a little bit. But they were asked, Josh Hart was asked about, how tired are you having to play the full game, not going off? And his answer was phenomenal, and it goes along in the same way. He said, mate, my job is to play a game. I'm not tired. What about the people that have to get up before 6 a.m. and work a 12-hour shift? Go and ask them, because they're the ones that really work hard. They're the ones that are really tired. I'm just the one that's out here in front of 20 cameras for the whole world to see, because my job gets, and I'm extending his quote here, but his job gets publicised by everybody. But he's not getting up and working 12 hours and then feeding 5 kids on his own, And people are. So many people in the world are. So it's crazy, because they play a game and, they are on the screens and it's an entertainment product. They get treated so differently because they are human. And just like you and I, just like everybody watching this. So, yeah. Before we went real deep in there, it is very important.
I think that's going to be the tone of this podcast, though.
Yeah.
So.
Because it happened again, obviously, in the GWS and the Bombers game at Marvel. It was special once again. Obviously, a lot of the Giants players very close to Cam as well. There was a special tribute down there at Marvel. And the Giants went down. But again, what we said about Freo, same thing for GWS. To get that close to an Essendon side that is firing, playing electric football, but even to more of an extent for them, getting on a plane, going interstate, and then finding out on game day or the day after, while you're interstate, away from home, away from your family, that one of your best mates has passed. It just, to me, and this goes with the job thing as well, how it's so unique. If that happened to anybody else in pretty much any other job, the boss would be like, okay, mate, that's massive. You don't expect to come in today. Or if they did come in, they'd be like, oh, you're fully supported. But these guys not only have to come into work, play a full game of football at the highest level, against a really good side, but they also have to get judged for it as well. So for the Giants and the Dockers and everybody else that play for every other team, I can't speak higher enough of the effort, because it was superhuman. Humans are not. It's so abnormal for humans to have to do that, because it's such a massive emotional challenge. So hats off to them. We continued on Saturday night, not the biggest and the best Saturday night coupling of games, Woods, for the season, as the Bulldogs got the easy kill over the Tigers at the G by 91 points. Not too much to mention there, really. That was always going to end up in a Dogs win. And the Gold Coast Suns won outside of People First Stadium, but it was a home game, so I'm not going to count it. And they continue to dominate Darwin, and they killed the North Melbourne Kangaroos, who have started 0 for 9 or 0 for 7 now, which is interesting. I don't know what their actual 0 for 8. I think it's their worst start in a long time. But they went down by 68 points to the Suns. And then on Sunday, I was at this game as Collingwood, they inundated Marvel. I have not seen so many supporters for a game between sides so separated on the ladder and so separated in recent success. It was absolutely jam-packed, and it was Collingwood everywhere for that game. It was blitzing loud, and the Magpies, I'd say look out, because they look like they're backwards. They won by 66 points over the West Coast Eagles in another simple win. And then potential game of the round at Adelaide Oval ended in another draw. The first one in the home and away season at the Adelaide Oval for the Crows. 90 apiece between them and the Brisbane Lions in an absolute belter to round out the round. And it was a beautiful way to round out the round too. It was electric. But the game I didn't mention, Woods, and the one we'll go into now, is the Extra Time Cup. It happened down in beautiful Lonnie at our home away from home. The Hawks took down the Saints by just 5 points in not the prettiest affair, but I love the result, so I'll say it was beautiful. And I'm not going to bore you for too long with massive positive Hawks talk. I've got the cup here. I'm all happy. I've got the footy that I've been kicking around for 75 days, and I've been thinking about the Hawks all weekend. Watch the full replay. So I could go on for ages. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say that the brand was what I loved again. Just exciting, willing to go without any ifs or buts. And it's not only is exciting, but it's full of pressure and hunger, because the team is so well built for the culture that they've got in. The young blokes are the heart of the team, and they've got full license. And I love that. And yes, Hawthorn's probably going to get belted in a few games late in the year because they're all going to be knackered, because they're all, under 25. But I still want Sam Mitchell to keep going the way we're going. Take that risk in the game plan. It's not like anybody else's. It's just helter-skelter, go. And that's great, because I reckon it's going to, hyperextend or, push the development of all these young guys along really quickly. And it was too much for the Saints, who are used to, playing that control, defence-first footy. And they, like you said, and I'm sure you'll mention it, they usually play really fast out of the back half, but because of the masterclass that was the Hawthorn press, they just couldn't burst through. And it really cost them in the end. And then when they did get momentum, which is massive in today's game, when you get momentum, because both sides always have their go of momentum in every game, even if it's a blowout. But when you get your momentum and it's only a couple goals in it, in the contest, this is where I talk about, backing is bad football. You got to make the most of your chances. And when the Saints got their momentum, they just didn't. And that's what cost them the game. But more on the Hawks, they're just, the way they're playing is great. And I'm actually settling inwards to the position that we're in. I'm not used to it, but I'm settling in. I'm actually not really wanting us to contend quite yet, because I love being that team that's not expected to win. But when we do, it's like massive, and it makes you appreciate it more. And I love the up-and-coming kids. Dylan Moore led beautifully. John Newcomb. Nick Watson came out, kicked a couple goals. Lloyd Meek, phenomenal. Joshy Weddle was awesome again. And the way that they're coming in with the guidance of Lukey Bruce, Frosty and the others was great. I love the way the team's built. And Sammy Mitchell coaching masterclass once again. He's a top 5 coach in the league, and I cop a bit of flack for that, but that is a fact. And the midfield, which was outmatched completely on paper, dominated. Jai was, again, just mega in there. Lloyd Meek which was probably the toughest matchup and the most lopsided going in with who I think is one of the best ruckmen in the league in Rowan Marshall. Did beautifully. Big Meat Mondays. So I love where we're at. I loved watching it. I loved the change up in the forward line. It was basically Jack Gunston. They started with Cal Steer, but he's not a very, very tall guy. Just heaps of Mosquito Fleet sort of 2017 Richmond sort of thing where because we're moving the ball fast, you don't need a big target. Just get it in there dirty. Get in there ugly and let Dillmore and the others go to work. Watson, the little wizard, kicked a goal from outside 50. But it's exciting because when they're in there, they put the Saints defence under pressure because they're great in the air. They're beautiful intercept defence, beautiful, closing defence in the air. But they looked a little bit out of place when the ball was on the ground inside defensive 50. And that was a coaching masterclass from Mitchell to go that way. It was brave, especially when he subbed out Cal Shadir, which was basically the only height they had down there. Subbed in Brewsty, but it worked perfectly. I was surprised that Ross didn't turn the game around and try and make Hawthorn kick long inside 450 because that would have ended up in the Saints' favour with, kicking to 160 centimetre Nick Watson. But that was my very happy take on the Blue Ribbon Cup Woods. One of the 2 cups we won. Obviously, the Extra Time Cup sits right here. In my hands, not yours.
Yeah, well, where do I start with this? I think it's the perfect time. I'm going to steal your segment this week. And if you look to the screen, right, you got your celebration. But this, right here, this is my comments on the game. Bad kicking is bad football. So, my wall of shame, 7-11.
Right in the middle, right up there.
It's frustrating. Like I mentioned earlier that
it's about time you go on a rant. I usually steal them.
I don't like going all... I don't like singling out players because I'm always the case of like you mentioned that one play at the end, but then what about the 10 times throughout the game? Both going umpiring decisions are probably the biggest identifier for this, but I was out taking photos, and so I've only watched the glimpses. I watched the last few minutes, but the biggest thing I saw was we're playing no risk football. We're too scared to take the risk. It's frustrating as a fan that players aren't prepared to, break a line and have a chance for a turnover at the chance of a goal. We're afraid to run the ball. We're afraid to just take that chance. And as a fan, you get to the point and you're going, we're taking one step forward, but then 3 steps backwards. At the start of the year, we beat Collingwood in round 2. Okay, it wasn't a full strength Collingwood, but I rate Collingwood when they're on. They're like at the moment with the current Collingwood side, when they're on, when they're 100%, they're first or close to first. When they're not on, they're around 5th or 6th. Like they're still very dangerous, but we beat them. So, which tells me, okay, when we're 100%, we're at least at the 5th mark. The problem is we haven't been at 100%. We haven't been able to fully showcase what we are. As I've mentioned previously, and I've joked about it on this podcast for weeks now, but the St Kilda are the Aiden box of the AFL, and I don't mean to throw you under the bus like that, but we've got a long-running thing of Boxy just rocks up late. You'd say 12, he'll rock up 12:30. But that's expectation, so
Even Ross joked about it, but it's not a joke at this point.
Yeah, no, but you know that, okay, with you, if I want to see you at a certain time, I'll go half an hour before. I'll be here half an hour before waiting for you because I know you'll be there at that time. So it's a case of, once again, not taking chances. Yeah, we had a good chat before. And you spoke about Hawthorn, the players, you can see the desire, you can see that they want to play, that there's a passion.
They want to take risks.
Yeah, they want to have
scared.
it. They want to be part of this success. And at times I've seen that with St Kilda, but lately it hurts to actually know that I'm like, hold on, going into this game, we should be winning this easily.
You're not wrong.
But going into the North game, I said if there was a game that North Melbourne were going to win, I just feel it's going to be against us. I was fully confident of the St Kilda North game being North Melbourne winning. I was just there going like it's going to be the way that we play, just our luck, whatever it is. But at a time, you've got to go, hold on. You show so much promise, and then you just go missing.
That was the biggest surprise for me because I know it's North Melbourne and they're pretty horrible right now. But St Kilda played so well against North and they looked back to their best, moving the ball fast and deliberately and definite. And then they came out against Hawthorn and it was all gone in a week.
So we're ball watching or we're thinking somebody else is going to do it, relying on someone else to do it. It's like, go back to the logs, the boats. Who's doing that? You can't rely on one person. When Jack Steele are on form, they've got other people around them who are doing the load as well. When the reliance is on them and Steele reported suffering knee injuries and having to get that checked out, okay. But who's there?
And he was so brave. Like, as
who's
a captain,
there stepping up?
I was really impressed. But this is the hunger thing. Like, the midfield of him, Seb Ross, hundreds of games of AFL football.
Right.
They should always be, and Rowan Marshall should be wiping the floor with the young midfield of Warple, Newcomb and Meek. But Warple, Newcomb and Meek, who have barely played really, a full year together, were dominating them because they were just more hungry and they backed themselves. They weren't scared. And, I do respect Steele for definitely his final quarter where he really tried to lift them. But until then, he was shaky. But for a bloke to be, down, probably a bit, like I said, sore, to try and lift his side. Rowan was phenomenal as well. Heaps of respect there. But you're exactly right. There was too many passengers in the end. And, exactly what you said before, Steele and Ross and Marshall shouldn't have to carry it. They should be winning the football like they always do, sure. But they need to have Liam Henry on the outside, Brad Hill on the outside running for them, Max King wanting to dominate the game up forward. They just didn't quite have enough of that around them on Saturday. And like you said, we're not going to get critical on all the players, but it's a team game.
Yeah. So I've made the heartbreaking decision for the next 2 weeks. I'm banishing them. St Kilda.
Well, at the end of the year,
I will be going for a new team for 2 weeks. I tell you that, okay?
By September, there'll be no teams to talk about.
So the team, I'll make it now. The team that I'm going for is called Euro Roke. And they're a new team in the AFL. I haven't lost a game.
We're very similar colours to the Saints too.
So they're red, yellow, black. Their home strip and their away strip is red, white, and black. I am, of course, talking about St Kilda's Indigenous name they're taking up for 2 weeks, so I'm not jumping off them. I can't jump off them now. I'm 34 years old. I followed them all my life through the heartbreaks of like 2000, early 2000s era. Most of the late mid 2010s, the 2020 final, and then last year. The highs of 97, 2004, 5, 6, 9 and 10, and 2008. I can remember winning last round by a huge margin to sneak into the 4, only to play Hawthorn and Geelong. I think it was Geelong, then Hawthorn. We played Hawthorn in the prelim. But there's these moments there. I want to see a premiership. I want St Kilda to experience a premiership, having seen the celebrations that previous clubs have had. Obviously, Melbourne being the last drought breaker, and their celebration was pretty subdued because of lockdown. But seeing Richmond in 2017 and experience that in Swan Street, seeing Collingwood break in 2010 against us, seeing Bulldogs win. it's heartbreaking knowing that only one team does it every year. And in 2009 and 2010, we were so close. Yeah, there was just one other team better. And moments like the Hawthorn Saints game just goes to show, okay, we're 3 years off. Okay, I'm not expecting big things this year. I'm expecting a bit of development and actually progression to that 3-year mark. But the games that we should win are the ones that are the teams below us. There's no point in winning games where odd game against the team above us and then, okay,
cancels it out.
Give me North Melbourne, maybe West Coast, but we play West Coast in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, I think. I'll confirm that in a second, but we play West Coast and over there, I'm not confident over there. Over here, I'm okay. And I was like, looked at the fixture, I'm like, I can see us realistically 3 wins right now. We should win. So it's nervous because, yeah, we play Melbourne next week or Narm because it's still in part of the Doug Nichols round. We play Fremantle or Wallylup.
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 It's a great initiative, and we should mention it from the clubs. A lot of the clubs get involved and go back to their name of the area, name of the club in Indigenous language, which is really special. One of my favourite rounds, not just for the jerseys, but for how we recognise and celebrate.
So 6 clubs are doing it this year.
The players that are so important to our game. So Melbourne are doing it again. Obviously, I think they're the ones that started it.
I think
obviously they're Narm. Yardapulti is Port Adelaide. Walyalup is Fremantle. Adelaide are doing it as well. They're Kawana, and they've actually changed their logo as well, which is pretty cool. West Coast is Walajit Marawa. I hope I have pronounced that correctly.
I'm not going to try because...
But it's cool, and it's awesome
I tried pronouncing Kilda's Euroroki. I don't know if that's right or not, but...
It's awesome that the branding changes for these rounds as well. Everywhere you see the team, the name, the logo, and all the branding, everything that is every club that's changed is in, Indigenous colours, the language, and everything. Love to see it. It just makes our job a bit harder trying to pronounce, but I will never complain about it because it is a really special round, and it celebrates, like I said, some of the most inspirational, special, important people in our game from the start to the present and into the future for sure.
But while we're on this, and I should put it up.
The Saints winning kicking bear football this week?
They are. Port Adelaide, though, I think off the banish list after one week of you not watching them. But as you mentioned, we'll just have a look up and see the Victorian sides in their jumpers there. All awesome and all great designed.
And a lot of them too, as we were talking about off air earlier, have a couple of jerseys because obviously these days Sir Doug Nichols round runs for 2 weekends, which is amazing. Yep. Like how could you not want
last
an
year,
extra,
I think it
extra
was as
weekend?
Well. I think they've done it for a couple of seasons now.
And it's so that every club can play one home game in their jersey, jumper, Guernsey, whatever you call it, in front of their fans. And I absolutely love that. So a lot of these sides, like I said, have a couple. I know that the Hawks have a brown and a gold version, and I'm very close to going and buying one. My birthday's coming up, so this week. My birthday is this week. It is today as you listen to the podcast or watch the podcast. So it might be on the list. And obviously a few others. The Saints one I really love. They've got a different version of that as well. I think more predominantly yellow, maybe.
No, so the other one is a red, white, and black version.
Right. Yep.
So we'll be seeing that against Melbourne, and we will have a graphic of all the teams in all the variation jumpers next week. Maybe even a trivia after.
Something else which is really cool as well.
So keep studying on all the Indigenous Guernseys, I reckon.
Something else is really cool, and I don't think I quite got these photos to you, but I did see them across socials earlier. The umpires have Indigenous shirts as well, and so do the Oz kickers, which is really cool.
I've seen the Oz kickers. I'm pretty sure that might have been a I'm not sure if it's what they're wearing this season, but I have seen a few Oz kickers with a Indigenous design at local Oz kicks. So I'm not
Really?
sure if that's a regular thing or if it was just a one-off that I saw. But it's a good initiative nonetheless.
Yeah, it sure is, and I really like how everyone's getting involved in it and showing they're all here to celebrate and recognise the Indigenous Doug Nichols Indigenous round, and we love it. Everybody loves it, so I'm really keen for the football to commence as well and see all the cool jerseys, the ball as well, obviously, as we see there with the red and yellow version in a new spec as well, which is really cool. So I'm absolutely pumped for the round. And yeah, it's going to be great. Some great footy coming up. I'm keen to see if the Hawks can get another win. But on the back of the win on the weekend, Woods, it's time to pick my boy of the week. And it's one of the hardest weeks I've had to pick in a very long time. And it might come as a little bit of a curveball, but one of the runners-up actually isn't a Hawk. It is Christian Petrarca, because man was a one-man team. I don't have much more to say about it, just that the fact that it was wet. He's playing a team that looked unstoppable and basically were. His team couldn't score to save themselves, and he just thought, all right, I'm going to go forward then because these forwards can't do it, so I'm going to go out of the midfield into the forward line, became their best forward and their best midfielder. At the same time, kicked 5-1, had 21 disposals, 7 tackles and 6 marks, and almost put him across the line. I only went down by the 1 point like we talked about before, which was phenomenal from him. It's just superhuman performance. Put the team on his back, and there's not much more to say about it. Second runner-up is someone, and this actually hurts me because I've got the jersey jumper on, and I only changed this really late. But Nuke, I'm so sorry. It's like the third or fourth time you've come second. I'm sick of it. I know you're sick of it because you're playing your backside off. The bloke was game high 31 disposals in a midfield that had, like I said before, some very seasoned players and very, very good players in it. And he had led the game in disposals, 8 clearances and 17 contested possessions. The guy is an absolute animal. The midfield is just all him at the moment. Warps does really well in there. Connor Nash is someone else I would love to mention, and I haven't, because he's not a tagger, but he's one of the best defensive midfielders I've seen in the comp this year, and that's not being biased. He plays on other players, and he doesn't necessarily tag them, but his tackle pressure and ball-winning ability in contested situations is unreal because he's a big guy. He's a tall guy, big frame, and he helps Nuke win clearances, and he helps himself winning clearances as well. So he played really well. But yeah, Nuke was sensational. I've just loved the way that he bounced back from not his best start to the season. It wasn't bad by any stretch, but not his best. But yeah, 31 disposals, 7 tackles, 8 clearances, 17 contested. Just at this point, it's just his game in, game out, which I'm loving seeing because he is my favourite player in the comp. But my boy of the week this week is none other than the stand-in captain. And what else really do you need to say? You just look at the image, mate. The bloke is just like, I don't even know what to say about him, honestly. Phenomenal. He was picked 67 in 2017. He's 177 centimetres tall. That's not very tall, Woods. And I heard during the week, I think it might have been Kingy or someone over the airwaves said that he's the best player pound for pound in the competition. And I don't think any truer words have been spoken. The bloke wins battles between players twice his size, kicks goals from nowhere, goes up, takes huge pack marks, and it sounds crazy, but he has taken some hangers. And he led a young team at just 25 years of age on the weekend to a second straight win against a team that was heavily, heavily favoured against them. Kicked a couple of goals, kicks goals at crucial times, usually to start the game and get everyone raring to go, and almost cut his whole cheek off in doing so. So Dylan Moore is my boy of the week once again, and it just makes me smile looking at this photo here. And he's just the epitome of what Hawthorn is at the moment. And it couldn't have been a better leader on the weekend. So Maury, the skipper from the weekend, the winning skipper, of the Blue Ribbon Cup is my boy of the week. The game of the round, Woods, I reckon it's a tough one because that Thursday night contest was great. The Hawks and the Saints were great, but I think we've agreed on the draw on Sunday afternoon.
I'll have to agree with that. The draw was just one of those things where you don't usually see a team go against the momentum. Adelaide were up by about 2 goals, then Brisbane kicked 5 goals in a row, and the momentum was theirs. For Adelaide to steer the ship back in their favour, kick 3 goals, kick another one, put themselves up, but Brisbane fought back and kicked a goal. It had it all in that last quarter, so I think, Brisbane, Adelaide.
It was electric in every sense of the word, and I'll probably overuse that word this podcast, but the Crows just need that one last piece where they can finish off wins confidently. They just don't have it yet. But I'll tell you, if they can develop it and they can finish wins, they can beat anybody and they can make the 8. So I'm very interested to see how they go. And just on that, it might be time for who can and can't win the flag.
Before we do that, I just wanted to get a bit of the update on what I was talking about, if I was right or not. So if you look to the screen now, this is the current Auskick kit. So I just quickly searched it up. So they do wear a top that is Indigenous design all year round. So I thought I'd bit of an update there. Moving on to, though, who can and can't win the flag.
Okay. Is this me?
This is you first.
All right.
And
so
I'm going to just quickly make a play for that because I'm... Okay, go on.
The Saints are out.
Yep.
Who else did I have? I think I had someone else coming in. Oh, no, I'm very smart. I've already got the ones I wanted crossed off. Done that for myself. No, that's pretty good. Like I said before, very keen to see how the Crows go. I think they are probably the one and only at this stage for me. I can see myself pulling the cross off.
Yep.
But they just don't have... And that's a crucial piece in today's game because we see so many comebacks and momentum changes late in quarters, especially this year. It's been crazy. You need that. You need to be able to finish games off. And I talked about it with Freo a few weeks ago, and then they had a couple good wins to get back on board. It was tough for them on Friday night, so I'm going to give them a bit of a benefit of the doubt there, as any good person would. Very keen to see how they go this week, so I'll keep them on. Melbourne, you never know. Sydney are my flag favourites. Collingwood are back to their best. Carlton have a really good run home. I'm not worried about Geelong. And I'm not worried about the Giants either. They've got a few injuries, but I'm going to keep them there. And the Suns, for me, like I've always said, their problem is winning genuine away games, and I haven't seen them do that yet.
Very nice. Now, as I look at yours, I'm about to go to mine, and I think I'm actually going to do something I didn't think I'd do so early. It is only before round 10. As I move to mine, I'm surprised, actually. There's one cross I'm going to put on, and I actually might have thought I had a cross on another team, but I think they were very close to having that cross on. But having seen where teams are, I actually honestly thought I had a cross on them. So I'll talk about the cross first. Gold Coast. As you said, they're too inconsistent. I'm surprised that you had it first. Usually I'm the one to pull the trigger on teams. I pulled the trigger on St Kilda about a month ago now. I would have to go back and confirm this. But I'm not a delusional fan by any stretch of the imagination. Some years I've gone, the expectation and the hope kicks in. But this year I went early. I've gone... We're turning up late to games, and you can't be doing that if you want to win a flag. The team that I thought I actually had a red cross on was Essendon. And I think they lost against Port Adelaide, and I think they were...
Since then...
I went...
Phenomenal.
In my head, I was going, one more big loss like that, and...
They have been flawless ever since.
They've played challenges, they've played teams that have... they've played GWS, they've played Collingwood where they got a tie. They've played other teams and they've been able to really impress. Now, obviously, I think Fremantle is the only team. I'm trying to think of where Freo are. No, I think I've got all the teams that are in the 8 at the moment. If I can't see a team that's not, I've got eight teams. 8 teams that can, and they're all the teams that are actually in the
Still
8.
got Brisbane there?
I do. So Brisbane obviously missed that. Well, who have I crossed out then? Just having to quickly go through. Have I got 9 teams? I've got 9 teams. Okay, so Brisbane. They're one of the teams that I reckon will be the next one to go on the Red X, and then I've got only the finalists. I don't want to write them off too early. They're runners up last year. It all comes down to the next few weeks for them, because if they can get a few wins together and then really start getting that momentum towards the end of the year, they can get back into it. And I wouldn't write them off if they're 5th to 8th because of that finals experience. They know how to win a final.
Well, a final that they did win last year was the prelim against the Blues. And speaking of the Blues, they are the new heavyweight champs, Woods.
Well,
the D's
yes.
they just couldn't hold it. They copped a big challenger. They lost the belt a couple of weeks ago, but they've got it right back.
D's,
and they look menacing, the Blues.
What can we say about the D's? If it was a wrestling match, Carlton would have had it dominated early. Basically got the one. Basically executed.
It was a tag team match, but Melbourne forgot to rock up with 2 members or 3 members.
I'd be going if it was a one-on-one match. It'd be Carlton's just executing signatures, finishes, and then just decide to go for the pin, and it's a 1-2 and a 2.99 kick out. Melbourne 5 back up. You think Melbourne's going to do it? They're going to.
They've held it all in.
Yeah, they've held it all in. They start making the charge. They go for the pin. 1-2. Carlton kick out. Carlton executes a finisher, and that's game over. But
it's because Woods, and I know you took my segment, but Carlton kicked 12-5, and I've been on their backs the last few weeks. Curnow mostly, but Carlton are very similar to the team which I do not name, in that they are a genuine top 4 team. They are built perfectly. They play really well. Great coach, great captain, bookends perfect. Wiedering was phenomenal on the weekend. And you can't say enough good things about my close personal friend Harry Mackay, of course, who I wasn't too nice to last year, but showing why constructive criticism works. I was hard on them. They kicked 12-5, and that's what they won, especially that first half. They set up the win because that put pressure on Melbourne. And like you said, it took everything in their might to just escape that third hit and get out, get up. And then, obviously, like I mentioned with Geelong, if you give up that big of a head start, it is so hard, and there's a reason why. If you give up a lead at the start, you usually don't win because it is so hard to win. And just the ability and the leadership and maturity they had late in that game is what they haven't had in the last few years. And I mentioned before, their run home is amazing. So I'm going to say, the Blues can really go far. I love watching the football they play when they're on. If they find their best footy more than their worst for the rest of the year, they can finish in the top 2. They might get a home final, and who knows how far they might go off the prelim last year where they got close. I'm really excited to see them for the rest of the season, and
they
deserved heavyweight champions.
Well, they set up, I reckon, the biggest heavyweight clash so far. They're travelling to the SCG to take on first place Sydney.
Wow.
So I reckon this is a really good indicator of who to kind of look towards at the end of September. Will it be Sydney? I think they're going well right now. Can they hold it up against a team that's been relatively consistent with their performances in Carlton?
Probably, yeah. On paper, looking at it, the matchup of the year so far. And I know it's 1st versus 7th on the website here, but Carlton finally finding their best form. Obviously, we've got a lot of Carlton fan mates from our university days, Woods, and
of course Vegas Chat.
Yes, shout out Vegas Chat, doing it beautifully, Pato and Daff. But a few of them were saying, I remember a speech saying, geez, our best footy is phenomenal. And it so is, and they just haven't quite strung enough of it together so far. But they're still 7th and looking like genuine contenders. Like, they haven't got a bad record at all. And they play a team. So you're thinking, all right, so Carlton firming in this one, looking really good to get this win. But they're going up against a $1.50 favourite, which to be this much better than Carlton is saying something. And the Swans are. Like, if the Swans come out at their best, boy, like, I haven't seen a football team play like this for a while. The pressure is immense. Their ball movement is lightning. And the fitness level and the hunger of this team is outrageous. And I cannot wait for this one. I really, really hope it's one of those ones where you have to watch until right at the end. I really hope it's not a blowout either way, because that is the worst thing. Pet peeve. When a game is built up as the biggest for the year so far, which this one is, and then it's a blowout.
Yep.
It's like you just want to go back to 7:30 and say, can we start again, please? No one wants to see that. And as a neutral, you just want to see this one go so close. You know the MCG is going to be full at the I said SCG, I think, either way.
SCG,
it's in Sydney, yep.
Friday night.
Going to be massive.
But
and heavyweight bout, perfect one.
But moving towards actually looking at the other matches, so that's Friday night, 7:40 start. Thursday night, up in Darwin, shall be a great match. Geelong are travelling up there this time, take on Gold Coast.
Boxy's birthday blockbuster.
So that's the Boxy's birthday blockbuster Bonanza
Saints,
Cup.
I don't think the Suns have lost in Darwin for a while. They don't go in as favourites, though. Interesting.
Have to have a stat check there. Fact check, I should say. But moving to Saturday, Kuwana head to the G to take on Collingwood. First game of the day.
This is everything for Kuwana or Adelaide. It's just everything for them because they're out of the 8 at the minute. Like I said before, they haven't been able to finish, and they go up against a team that is probably the best at it in the comp. And the reigning premiers, but the reigning premiers finally back in their premiership form, so going to be huge.
Well, as I said earlier, and I think you touched up on it with what Speechley said about Carlton and the range. When they're good, they're good.
Oh, yeah.
So, and this is the thing. When Carlton are good, they're definitely an anchor in the top 14. Top 4 at the moment, right? But when they're not so good, I reckon they're like a... second, third to about an 8 or 9, right? Yeah. And I'm just talking about the way they play. So when they play, and if they're having a bad game,
by that exact example, they lost to Adelaide at Marvel when they weren't at their best at all. And this is the same team. So
Adelaide, I'd be saying, okay, at the moment their best is about a 5th. Their worst is about a 14.
Where they are right now.
Well, they're 12th.
Yeah.
Collingwood, I reckon their best is 1st. And they showed that last year when they play footy. And their worst is about a 6 or a 5th, 6th, 7th. They're 8th at the moment, so they're showing...
The fact that... And
it will balance out.
They played West Coast, which is a rebuilding team, bottom end of the ladder. But they had so many key players out and then lost Jeremy Howe pretty early in the game and still played football that had everyone going their back with a bunch of, VFL-listed players. Joe Richards, who's basically straight out of Wangaratta. He was a school teacher. Kicked a couple goals, dominating. Finlay McRae had a lot of the footy. That's what's scariest to, I think, a lot of teams. But then, like we were saying before, if Collingwood don't rock up and they rock up as that first few rounds of this year, Collingwood, Adelaide will win this game because they love jumping on it. I said it last week. They're one of the teams that's saving the comp because they're outside the finals. They might not make finals, but they can jump anybody. When you're not on, they'll win.
Yep.
So that one's massive. And then up at NG Stadium, the Giants take on the Dogs. And this is a pretty big rivalry ever since 2016 when the Doggies went up there and won that prelim.
I'm sure the Doggies love that trip. Especially, I know Bulldogs fans do because of the memories that it holds, the prelim final and the memories of then the week after. But it looks set to be another good clash.
And then your boys, Euro Roke, host Walyalup at Marvel Stadium on Saturday night. I'm going to be tuning into this one because it's two teams that should be a bit higher up at their best, like we've been saying. I know we say at their best a lot, but
I mean, if both teams can play at their best, it's going to be a ripper game.
But it's no guarantees with these two.
Unfortunately, I don't think the problem is neither team. Most of the time, when you say that, one team doesn't show up. So I'm not confident going into this game. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful for the win, but I think there's a lot There's a lot of stuff we need to work on.
Next up in the doubleheader on Saturday night, also at 7:30 at the Gabba, is Brisbane and Richmond, and that is just a simple must-kill for the Brisbane Lions if they're to salvage their season. A lot of injuries as well, but they go in $1.05 favourites. I mean, you can't be much shorter than that, and Richmond are more battered and bruised than them, so there's some pretty battered and bruised big cats on Saturday night. I think a lot of people will probably be tuning in to the one in Melbourne just because that's got everything riding on it as a bit of a blowout, bit of an ugly game up in Brisbane. Then on Sunday, it's the Bombers looking to continue their massive run where they sit third and all the way trying to finally win that final after about 8,000 days, Woods. And they host the struggling North Melbourne Footy Club at
If
Marvel.
they keep going the way they're going, they've got 2 chances.
At this stage, they do. That's a good call.
They sit in the top 4 right now. If they can continue that, they'll have 2 chances of breaking everybody else's hearts. But knowing that we can't make another Essendon winning a final joke.
It would be glorious if they went out in straight sets. That would make everything so much better. But a long way from that. A long way from September. We're only round 10. Yardapulta, you host my Hawks looking for 3 in a row. And a few key inclusions likely to come in as well, which is pretty big. But
I can
pretty tough
honestly
team to
say
beat
I don't
right
think
now.
you've ever beaten Yardapulta.
No, I don't think we have. There was a game a few years ago where we went over to the Adelaide Oval and beat the team in those colours quite convincingly. But then seems that this replay at my gym just keeps going on and on when we got belted by about nearly 100 over there last year. Don't want to see that again. But that's on prime time Sunday afternoon. And then to finish off the round, Wallajit Marawa or the West Coast Eagles host Naarm in 16th versus 4th. That should be a relatively easy kill for Naarm. To finish off round 10, make sure you're starting that one and watching the Boxy's birthday blockbuster at 7:30 Thursday or tonight with the Suns and the Cats. But that's enough footy for this episode. Round 10 coming right at you from tonight. And another league I wanted to go in is, well, it's something that's synonymous with footy, definitely in the country, Woods. A lot of footy netball clubs, and that is netball. We don't talk about it enough.
I think it's not. I'm just going to cut in there. It's not just the country nowadays. I know a lot of clubs. I know the Eastern Football Netball League is it used to be the Eastern Football League, EFL. It is now the EFNL. So it's good to see it getting adopted in the Metropolitan as well. I know Blackburn Footy Club have a netball. I don't even know affiliation. Well, it's not really I won't call it an affiliation because they are part of they're part of Blackburn. Blackburn's mantra of it is "We are one." I like that we're together. So it's the Blackburn netballers are part of the Blackburn Football Club as well.
They go together so beautifully. It's like bacon and eggs on your morning toast, mate. It's phenomenal, the two sports, and it should be. Every club should be a footy netball club because Australia is one of the best countries in the whole world at the sport, mate. So, and a phenomenal sport it is. And obviously the big league over here is the Suncorp Super Netball. And just to go over it, because we just don't do it enough at the moment, it is the West Coast Fever who currently sit on top, followed by the Melbourne Vixens, who are just phenomenally good all the time. They're both on top undefeated at 5-0 to start the season, so big result for them. Following them is the Thunderbirds and the Swifts, last year's champs, and that's the top 4 as we stand. Obviously, top 4 shaded here on the ladder for the finals teams. Lightning are 5th, the Firebirds are 6th. The new team, first year for the Mavericks, as Siri loves the Mavericks, owned by obviously the SEN. Big Hutchie and his Mavs, they sit second last. They've got 1 win on the board, and the Giants are at the bottom of the table. But it's good to see an expansion team get their first win, as the Mavericks did a few days ago, a week or so ago now. They defeated the Sunshine Coast Lightning by 1 point, puts in a thriller. So good to see the Mavs on the board as someone who does a little bit of stuff in and around SEN. Everyone was pretty happy about that, and I'm sure the big fella was happy as well. But that's how it stands at the moment. And yeah, 2 teams with 5-game win streaks at the top of the table, and I can't wait for this round's games. It's a beautiful league, and if you have any interest in netball at all, or even if you don't, and you're just interested in having a crack at what I'm talking about, you can watch it on KO and Foxtel, and I really implore you to do so because it's just electric. Like it's lightning stuff. It is netball at its highest level. And if you're a basketball fan, you know how, a smaller rectangular court in a enclosed stadium the atmosphere can get. And these games are always like that. It's quick. They're all athletes. The girls that play in the Suncorp Super Netball are phenomenal athletes. And I just love the sport because it isn't easy. But you got to go hell for leather, and you got to, there's no backboard when you're shooting, and it's great. I love watching it when it's on, so I implore you to do so. This weekend we've got Vixens, Lightning, Fever, Thunderbirds, Firebirds, Mavs, and Swifts and Giants. And they're obviously on 18th of May and the 19th of May this weekend. So Saturday and Sunday action, and like I said, across the screens of Foxtel and KO. Make sure you catch a bit of that, and I'll keep recapping you as the season goes on. But it's great to have Super Netball back. Good to see the Mavs get their first win. And the Fever and the Vixens on top at the moment. Now we're going to go across and out of the shores of Australia, and we're going to go around the grounds, and I'm going to rip through this one. But before I do, I've got to give my weekly wonder, and we've had a bit of a deep pod this week, and it's good to have that. It's not all, pumped ups and light-hearted stuff. It's always good to have that, but sometimes you've got to, celebrate the life, check in, and get a bit deep and meaningful, because that is equally a part of life. And during the week, I was going to do a bit of preparation for this podcast, and had the footy on, and I was having a decent afternoon. And then sometimes in life, you get some news, and it just shakes you to the core. And as someone who's a massive basketball fan, massive NBL fan, and a big listener to SEN, and a big follower of this man, when I saw the news that Corey Homicide Williams had tragically, unfortunately lost his battle over the weekend and passed, I don't really know what to say. You just sort of sit there and you can't do anything, because initially I couldn't believe it. He was such a fighter, and it was an uphill battle, and he was giving it everything, which is how he always did it. He always gave everything. Homicide, whatever he did. So it shocked me, and then I just couldn't believe that we'd have to go on without him, because he's synonymous with the NBL now and everybody. And I remember, driving home and hearing that Gazy wasn't going to be on the drive home, and you go, oh, that never happens, because Andrew's always on. Like he's the whole show. And when I found out why, it's just how it shakes you. And I remember used to come into uni back when I used to drive in. I'd have it on every single day after class. I'd listen to him, and Corey was on so often.
I must admit, I would always...
It got me through.
I'd always listen to it on the... SEN's always on the dial. And it was more often than not, by the time we...
Sometimes you'd get home and you wouldn't even get out of the car because you'd be listening to Corey. And
I'd leave class and I'm like, okay, I'm not a basketball fan, but I'd listen. And so it's one of those things. It's like you do get a bit shaken when somebody dies. I can remember a few in the last few years, Danny Frawley and Shane Warne being two iconic sports figures, but it's also people that have played a real big impact in your life. And I think that's one of the biggest things is it's the parasocial relationship that people have. But it's also like...
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Like, it's one of those things where a lot of the times, like, there's some people that don't mourn the death of a celebrity, but I think it's more so the fact that the memories that have been created. I look at the two that I've named, Danny Frawley and Shane Warne. Like, they've just been memories of going to the footy or going to the cricket, going to the G to watch Shane Warne play. I didn't really get to see Homicide play, even though I'm a bit older. I probably unknowingly have watched him play, but my times...
a bit young as well, but
the memories you have, you're listening to him on the radio, the insight, the passion that he has, and it's one of those things where you really do go, oh,
his impact.
I'm never going to be able to be in a car driving, listening to SEN and hearing Corey Homicide Williams. It's like just one of those things where
Yeah, mate.
you take for granted when you're in the moment of this. Something that I was thinking about recently is when it was the last time I did something, and I didn't realize it would be the last time. And there was a time where I was in the car driving, just listening to SEN. Just might have been white noise at the time, but I love listening to people talk about sport. And so when he was on, I'd always tune in. I'd get the topic that they're talking about very quickly because it's just that type of person. But he spoke with such passion that you wanted to know what it was. You wanted to know why he was talking about it. And yeah, it's just one of those things where, okay, I'm not really a basketball fan. Obviously, I follow Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. They're not doing too well. So the NBL to me is kind of taking the back seat. But it's one of those things where it just is another reminder of how valuable life is.
Yeah, and I'll never forget him. I'm like you said before. I never met the guy, but I have a connection with him that is just incredible. It's incredibly strong because like he always used to say, it ain't a cupcake league, and he's a big reason for that. He's a massive reason why the NBL is a top 3 comp for basketball in the world. It's his personality that brought people in to watch. It certainly brought me in to watch. He's one of the pillars for me that got me into wanting to be a broadcaster because he is how I want to do it. One of those people that it doesn't matter what game it is, you keep listening. It doesn't matter what they're talking about, like I said before, on the radio, on a random Tuesday arvo, you keep listening. Sometimes, like I said, I'd sit in the car, wouldn't go inside because I keep listening to Corey and Gazy. And, I can't credit Gazy enough for standing up and continuing to go and bounce and his commitments. The man's phenomenally strong because Corey's obviously one of his best mates and he was best mates with everyone. And I picked this photo and I really, really encourage you, whether you knew about him, followed him, had seen him, or whatever, go to the NBL's Instagram, go and watch their tribute for him because it had me in tears.
Yep.
And I will 100% stand by that. I was crying when I was watching it because the guy always had a smile on his face, but every time he was in broadcasting, when he was playing, whatever, wherever he was, from wherever I started watching him, everybody around him always had a smile as well, even when he was being serious. And some of his knowledge, like talking about the NBA basketball around the world, basketball was Homicide Williams in Australia. And when I never forget when I first heard of him and heard his voice on NBL years and years ago. It's like, who's this guy? Why is he here? He's not Aussie. And then I started listening to him, did a research and figured out who he was. And I was like, oh yeah, no, he's the man. He is Aussie basketball. And to be so passionate, there's not many more people as passionate as he was about Aussie ball. So he is a legend. And when I heard, I didn't really know what to say, but I reshared one of the photos the NBL put up, and I just said, legends are forever, and he will be forever. Enshrined in Australian broadcast media, but Australian basketball. He is a great, and he is a true legend. So rest in peace to Homicide. You'll never be forgotten. And I just thought he should be my weekly wonder, and he is. But across the shores in the US, Woods, we've had another signing in the NFL through the international player pathway. Our second, obviously, we had Pat Murder, who I've talked a lot about on the program. But during the week, we had a second out of Queensland, I believe, and it is Jotham Russell, who has signed with the New England Patriots. He's a defensive end. He is a mountain of a man as well. Through the international player pathway, he's signed. So 11 athletes around the world, including 2 from Australia, Pat and now Jotham, got included in the international player pathway, the NFL's IPP, or International Player Pathway. And in the beginning of 2024, just to give you a little background on it, Each of the 32 NFL clubs are eligible to fill a 17th roster spot on its practice squad, reserved for an IPP player. A participating club is permitted to elevate its international practice squad player to its active roster a maximum of 3 times throughout the season, increasing the flexibility for clubs to leverage the additional player while creating more opportunities to play. So both Jotham and Pat will get opportunities throughout the season to be elevated to the rosters on both for Russell, New England, and for Pat, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and try and strut their stuff. For Pat, obviously, catch a few passes, maybe a touchdown, and for Jotham, lay some tackles and stop the defense on the defensive side of the ball. So we wish all the best to Jotham Russell, like I said, who is a defensive end signed with the Patriots through the IPP, the second Australian to do so. So well done to him. Around the league as well, we mentioned him last week. We've mentioned him quite a lot lately. Our man Tory Taylor got himself paid and signed. He signed a 4-year, $4 million.
Just a little healthy
4 years, $4
bank
million.
filler.
With a $747,000 signing bonus. So he's set at the Bears.
Bank filler right there.
And that's pretty minimal by NFL standards. But he was the first special teamer.
I'm just talking about the signing bonus, not about the contract.
He was the first special teamer and first punter off the board in this year's NFL draft. Went to the Bears, who look pretty exciting this season. And he's all set, basically, the big fella down in Chicago. He's very happy to be playing there. Said they love their sport there. He's really keen to play with a couple of the other draftees in Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. And why wouldn't you be happy if you're earning a cool $4.5 million? So congratulations to Tory.
You got to get the kicking going, I reckon, mate.
Well, he'll be thinking, hopefully I don't have to, but when he does, I'm sure
talking about
great.
you. I mean, with that kind of
I'm pretty good.
coin going round.
Got
I know
plenty
you
of
said
time.
you're a good kicker back in the day, so I mean,
I got time, mate. You might see me there. Some other Aussies you saw at the draft didn't quite get drafted. They were over there doing a bit of sightseeing, a bit of media, a bit of watching. It's the two blokes that Australians will be pretty rostered on to knowing. The Shepmates, obviously, big in the media, the AFL sort of media landscape. And another fella on the left, I've unfortunately forgotten his name, but they were at the NFL draft. And the reason I pull this up is it's pretty cool. In the middle there with the mic and the piece of paper is Scott Hansen, who is one of the most beloved sports commentators, sports hosts in America and around the world, really. He hosts Red Zone, which is basically how everybody watches football in American football, because all the games are on at the same time on a Sunday. And Red Zone basically shows you every scoring drive from every game live. And Scott hosts it. It's a one-man show. And he just talks and tells you what happens every Sunday. So I tune into it at the start of the season at about 3 a.m. on a Monday morning. And then towards the end of the season, it gets a bit better at about 5 a.m. But he loves it. And it's great to see a few Aussies at the draft. And they actually won a jersey, I think, for being the fans at the draft who travelled the furthest. So the Shepmates are obviously from Balnaring. And the fellow on the left, the Chargers fan, is from Mountain East. And this got broadcast, so it's good to see some love for Balnaring and Mountain East in the States. And the fellow on the left just beat out the Shepmates on countback by kilometres for the person who travelled the furthest to Detroit for the NFL draft.
So what you're telling me is if either of us had have gone...
Well, me coming from Inverloch probably would have taken the crown.
Well, I reckon, yeah.
Unfortunately, the plane ticket probably wasn't in my budget. But
bit of a... Yeah, I was going to say just for one jersey. As you can tell, I'll just educate you why. Once again, it's a jersey, AFL Guernsey.
Yeah,
just thought I'd chuck that in there with a bit of a knowledge. I hear the producer,
it's the thing
Lorenzo, laughing there just at my pedantic nature.
It's the thing with the number on it that you wear when you play or you wear when you support, all right? Who gives? Anyway, the other league in America that we follow pretty closely at the moment, they're in the Yoffs at the moment. It's the NBA, and we've still got our three Aussies in Josh Giddey, Josh Green, and Dante Exum going head-to-head. Obviously, Green and Dante for the Mavs and Josh at OKC. And it's an absolute rip snorter of a series, Woods. They're tied at 2-2, going back to Oklahoma City for the next game, Game 5, a monumental Game 5. So it's great to see that going on. Josh hasn't been getting too many minutes. Josh Green has been doing pretty well, though, and Dante playing Great basketball when he's on the court as well. But unfortunately, one of Josh Giddey or Green and Dante will be saying goodbye to this season at the conclusion of this series. But I can't wait. I watched the full game yesterday. Great series as well. So keen to see which Aussies come out on top. Just moving around the leagues now to the Premier League, and this isn't really results-based or anything, but it's about our boy Ange, who we mentioned a lot last year when the Tottenham Hotspur were up and running on top of the table. Unfortunately, they couldn't quite finish off their good start. That's what happens.
Well, they've got one round to go. Final day is Sunday, or it'd be... I'm not sure if it's Monday morning.
Monday, maybe.
It could be. I'll just have to clarify that, but it's going to be a very big finish, and Manchester City look set to claim the title. It'll be Monday morning at 1 a.m. I'll be staying up to watch it all, as I think the excitement, no Australians that I know of are in it, but Manchester City face West Ham at home. All they need to do is win. And then Arsenal take on Everton at home, and they need Manchester City to either draw or lose, and for Arsenal to win. And if Manchester City lose and Arsenal draw, I think Arsenal take it on goal difference. No, they won't, sorry. I've just seen the ladder. So Manchester City are 88 points, Arsenal are 86. So Arsenal need Manchester City to either draw or lose. Arsenal just need to win.
Then to take care of Everton. Where'd the Spurs end up?
Spurs ended up in 5th. So 63
Not a bad showing
points.
for Ange.
So above the Spurs, or Ange's Spurs, is our great mate, Noah Fisher's Aston Villa. They've locked up a Champions League spot with 68 points. So shout out to Coupe de Villa and Noah Fisher. Or Coupe de Ville. It's Coupe de Villa, isn't it? Yeah, Coupe de Villa.
Joe, our great mate, the reserve keeper, is it Joe Gork, James Gorky?
Yeah, he plays for Aston Villa, so we've got the Aussie link there in the Champions League spot. And then third was Liverpool with 79 points. So there's a bit of a difference between 5th, 4th, 3rd, and then it all comes down to 2nd and 1st. And for those interested, my team finished 8th in Manchester United on 54 points, and avoiding relegation in 16th is Boxy's Brentford.
Right where we want to be, mate. Just Hawthorn's
only way is up.
Lot of heart.
Actually, no, I can't say that with the English Premier League because there is a relegation. So,
lot of heart in those bees, but there's also a lot of heart in Ange's first season. Like Woodsy said, a top 5 finish is pretty decent. But that's not really why I'm mentioning him this week. I saw this across the socials, and someone asked him about people labelling international fans as plastic, not real. And there's that whole thing around sport. It's around sport across the whole world. We see it a bit here with people saying, "Oh, how many games have you been to?" Or it's the same with people saying, "Oh, you don't even live in England. How do you support that team? You're not a real fan."
You could say that about any sport, really.
The definition of a real fan. There is none.
Yeah. Like, as I said, you can really say that about any sport if you're not in the country or the city or the location. Like, you're not a real fan. You watch up NFL or F1. You go to one F1 race a year, or it's like, you watch NFL, but it's like it's the commitments. It's like, okay, it might not always be waking up and watching the games live, but you wake up and you watch the replays or you watch the match highlights. Or like Noah Fisher, he has been to games and he's got a podcast with a few fellow Australians. They talk about the game. They don't dissect the game. Like, there's so much more to sport than just going to a live experience.
There's also Aston Villa fans that wouldn't even watch, but they're just as much of a fan as Noah is. And I think Ange summed it up really well. He was actually annoyed when he was asked the question as well. And he basically said, what we've just covered, like, I don't understand how that could be true at all. I think that fans can come from everywhere, and it's disrespectful. And he said, like it says on the screen, it's way too harsh. Yeah. It's not correct. Sport is it's beautiful, and we love it because it's for everybody. And the world is trying so hard to push that these days. Yeah. And to me, if you're one of those fans that is pushing that, I'm more of a fan than you narrative, then you're not a fan at all. Because
I think one of the things you've also got to break down,
people together.
You got
It's
to break
about-
down other aspects of it as well, like, okay, cost factors, time factors, other commitment factors. Okay, for us to go, for you to watch NFL Seahawks, right? How much is that going to cost you? How much time is that? What do you, like, it's not just the money, it's the time. It's factoring into a lot of other things. It's like, okay, I've been lucky enough to go to Old Trafford and experience that. Experience a Manchester derby. I've been lucky enough to see Manchester United beat Manchester City 2-0. It doesn't mean I'm any more of a fan than somebody who hasn't been because of opportunities. And so I break it down to AFL. It's like, unless like you support your team, if you feel the emotional investment and like, okay, when St Kilda lose, I feel down, I feel gutted because I've got that emotional connection. I think that's what being a true supporter is, being a true fan is about. It's not necessarily you have to go to games, you have to watch every game live.
There's no definition on what you have to be.
I think
it's not like a job. There's no
the true fan is the emotion. Like if you feel passionate about it, if you feel emotion when the team plays, if they win, you get that high. If they lose, you feel gutted, and you feel a bit annoyed or angry. Or if they're a bottom team and okay, that's the usual result. It's just like, okay, business as usual. But when they win, it's like winning a grand final. And I know for some teams, like I've seen teams that are bottom of the ladder. I'll take Coburg, for example, in the Victorian Football League. They played Collingwood a few weeks ago and won. They hadn't won for so long that one win, like I was watching it. I'm not a Coburg fan, I'm not a Collingwood fan, but I was watching it, cheering on Coburg, but then seeing the emotion on the players' faces and then seeing the fans posting videos and you actually get to see that reaction.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best things about sport.
And I'm a fan of a lot of teams. Like I'm affiliate myself with a couple specifically, but I've got heaps of jerseys, I've got heaps of clothing. I watch heaps of teams play. Like I said before, I love watching Carlton at the moment. I'm a Carlton fan. Like I'm a fan of a lot of teams, and I'm allowed to do that because sport is for everyone.
Yeah.
And like I said, you don't have to be born into the club. You don't have to be. There's no job description on being a fan of sport. And I loved seeing Ange, and I just love Ange Postecoglou because he's so wise in that way. But it's a good segue into our local footy segment because it's similar to what I'll talk about with another bloke that I really love in Tom Balch or Prime Train. And he said a very similar thing about content creation and really life these days in that it was a reel he posted and he basically said, I'm not the best footballer. I don't post because I'm trying to make the AFL. I'm not saying I'm the best footballer in the country. I'm not saying I'm the best country footballer. I'm not saying I'm the best everywhere I go.
Yeah.
But I publish footy content because I love it.
Yeah.
And if you're passionate about something, you don't have to have a PhD to go and talk about something. We don't have to have played 300 senior games of AFL football to talk about it.
Yeah, agreed.
If you love doing it and you've got something to say, go and say it. And this goes back to the top of the show where I was talking about committing to something that you love.
Yeah.
Do it because it'll make you so happy. A couple of years ago, and this is a great example. And I would love this to, get clipped in because this is basically the message I wanted to say. When I was down and I was feeling awful mentally and I didn't want to be around anymore, I didn't have a purpose, I was feeling like my imposter syndrome was taking over me, I wasn't a real adult, I was going nowhere, I'd achieved nothing, I didn't realise. But after I committed to doing the things that I loved, coming in here every week, taking on jobs that I genuinely love doing and pushing myself beyond my limits and outside my comfort zone, I turned back and realised 2 years ago, all I dreamed about was finally pushing myself beyond my comfort zone and talking about sport on a podcast.
Yeah.
And now we do that every week.
Yeah.
I wanted to commentate the local football where I grew up with the teams that I know everything about and have my voice on that each week. I do that every week. I wanted to run that social media, both my club and that competition, because it's what I love doing and it makes me feel amazing. And that's my purpose. I'm do that every week as well. So it might not be a massive achievement. I might not be, at the Hawthorn Football Club doing socials and commentating AFL. So it might not look amazing to other people, but I couldn't care less. Because to me, they were my dreams and I've achieved them. But I'm not happy because it's all about what's next.
Yeah.
And I'm chasing myself in 5 years. I'm chasing my dreams where I want to be in 5 years now. And that's exactly what Prime is trying to inspire people to do. So I just wanted to include that because I absolutely love it.
I think I want to also add here as someone who has dived into the content creation side of things, and I can actually speak on this a bit, but it also hits home in some respects in the sense of that caption there, people telling me not to create AFL content as you'll never get out of Australia. I think this is a problem that people have to stop looking at, and it is such a content creation side of things. It's
you'll never get where if you do that. You never.
No, I think it's more so we need that. I think you look at how long YouTube's been around for, and it's only in the last few years, and there have been some, but there hasn't been a plethora. There hasn't been that many of them. I can think of Caden McDonald, Connor Rogers, Marmalade
out of nowhere.
But that's in the last few years. And then there's other people there's a Hawk fan, Roaming Has, if you know that. He's actually been doing stuff with Hawthorn, which I think is great. He missed the flight at Tasmania, but they still FaceTimed him.
But the crazy thing is you see that everywhere in America.
Yeah.
And all American professional sports welcome all of it because it's a massive part of it. And we're only just catching on, but I could not support them anymore.
I'm going to name a few more. There's Carman22, there's Menza, there's Saints fan as well. Mr. Saints fan, I think his name is. But the fact is, I love
Bev.
AFL. I love Bevo. Yep, Bevo. Anybody, and I'll use Baggers Chat in this because they're creating AFL content, and there's a lot more podcasts. But what I want to see is a lot more AFL content, people vlogging at games, people going. There's a real community, and I've probably missed heaps of people.
Yeah.
I know I've missed heaps of people because I'm thinking of them as I speak.
And you just got to... Yeah. If you want to do it...
I think there's Lockie Miller, there's all these others, but
do it because...
embarrass
your pants off.
As you said, commit to it. Actually do it.
Yep.
Okay, there's stuff that I've got to get done. I do this every week, and that's my outlet of sport content at the moment. But it's
embarrass the pants off yourself.
We need more AFL content creators.
People
we need more.
Your mates will give you heaps of stick. I can talk about my mate Bud, who does very similar stuff to Prime. Yeah. He's nowhere near as big as Prime. But I think his content's just as good. I love his content.
I think we need more AFL content creators.
We went and celebrated the end of the NBA regular season recently, and he was copping it from the rest of the boys. Yeah. But I said, Bud, mate, you want to do this. You love doing this.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. Because at one point, you'll go higher than your mates, and all you got to do is realise, they're not doing this. They're only giving me stick because they're trying to support me, or they're jealous that they can't do that.
Yeah.
But in the end, it
but
doesn't matter what people think.
How mates are, but
they're not involved in what you're doing. And I couldn't speak higher enough of that. And to the
but I will go through it, all of them, and especially the Marmalade fellas. They're playing footy all together, and Jared Davis I think is one of them as well. But you look at them, they're playing at Wattle Park. I took photos for them a couple of weeks ago. The past Saturday, they did a breast cancer game. They wore pink, and they raise awareness, and they're having fun doing so. They get people down to the games, get people to the local footy. I think it's brilliant. As I said, I think we need more of it, and we need to be open to it and forget about telling them, you're never going to get out of Australia because of... Well, the point for this
as
stuff...
you say that,
no,
the second part of this is a video that Prime posted today. And the second part of this is, I'm actually just waiting for my flight to New York because he's actually playing AFL and creating content on his footy tour, which was mentioned before, in London, in New York. So best of luck to you, Tom. I absolutely love what you're doing.
I'll add to that. It's forget about it because of forget about the market. Focus on the content you want to create. So whether it's AFL, whether it's whatever sport, focus on that rather than the market where, you're never going to get out of Australia if you do this. It's hold on, but I want to do something I love. We're talking this for God knows how long, and it's just hold on. we might reach 20 viewers one week, 50 viewers the next, 100 viewers the next. Social media clip might reach X amount, but it's like, we're not doing it for that. We're doing it for us. The fact that people choose to watch us is great, and thank you for doing so. But it's at the end of the day, it's just two mates having a yarn about sport and getting caught up with a few tangents. And it's like, that is what creating content should be about.
Yeah.
Like,
and Tom said it best in that reel I was talking about before. He just said, stop consuming and just start posting, start publishing, start pushing yourself out there, keep going, go hard. And like I was saying before with my dreams and where I was nowhere a couple of years ago, all I wanted to do was, not only do this podcast, but then once we got this TV, I'm like, let's do some trivia. And that didn't come from myself. I've got to give credit to BDGE over in the States, and I have before. Nick and, Gut JMO, all the other guys, I watch them every single day, and I've been meaning to write out to them because they're a massive part of how far I've come well.
I love the trivias, and we both
they
take
made
part
me
in
dream
them. I might not be good at some of them. I love making them more than I love participating, if you haven't caught on by now. But I love the challenge of it, and I love just doing it.
And, he's really inspired me, those guys, and Nick himself, because he said at the start, I was awful. And, I was going nowhere, but I just did it because I wanted to do it so badly. So thanks for inspiring me, and thanks for inspiring this podcast, and for us doing trivia. It's the most fun.
Going back to the local footy stuff, we'll get a move on and just look at a few scores around the grounds of caught the eye. Now, there was one close to home in the Blackburn Norwood reserves. I know there was a few undermanned Norwood sides, so I won't go too much into it, but 231-0, 35-21, but in the Mildura, wherever that is, I don't know what league it is, but Goal Senior Men's, 49-18. I reckon that's the Hall of Fame right there for good kicking. 312-0, unfortunately.
49-18,
I think
phenomenal.
There's always a story behind it. The winner of this week would have to be 338, 52-26 if you don't mind, but just 8 goals in the last quarter. Just dropped off just a touch.
Nearly 80 shots at goals, not too bad. It's a decent day. Bad luck to the opponents there, but we like seeing a few big wins.
What's going on?
Abnormal stuff
where are you
going
to be this week?
So down at Garfield this week, obviously on the weekend I was at Tooradin Dalmore, and they defeated Up, which was easily the game of the round in the end. It was good to watch. Around the grounds, Nano Goon took care of business. They actually played on the Sunday on Mother's Day, which was pretty cool. And they look very menacing this season. But this Saturday, probably the biggest game for me is whether Kilcundabass can prove themselves against the reigning premiers in Inverloch Comwack. But I'll be at Garfield, and they play the Warragul Industrials. But something I saw during the week when we were interviewing Brad Lenders from Tooradin Dalmore is something they award each week, and it's for Defensive Player of the Game. And it's a little bit of a seagull chain, as they are the Tooradin Dalmore Seagulls. And I don't mind this. I like this in local footy because the atmosphere after a game sometimes can sort of be like, if you win, it's cool and everyone's just having a beer. But you add this in, and then all of a sudden people are sort of taking the piss out of Brad, but then he's sort of feeling like, this is cool, and it brings people together. It's a bit of like an American vibe where they get the big chains out and stuff. I'm not sure who brought it in at the Seagulls, but I love seeing this, and it didn't get a run because we're on radio, but we definitely talked to him about it, and it was great to see. I reckon most clubs should do this in a certain way.
Definitely good to see. And before we go to the Metropolitan in the Eastern Football Netball League, I'll just touch up against Isaac Smith for Bunyip. So have you confirmed you will be at this game? Or
I'm pretty certain, yes.
That's good. Now, as we look to Blackburn, we got a win 123-27. And this week we'll be facing the Premiers, I believe, in Rowville. But I just wanted to end on the note that kind of this whole podcast has been about, especially with Cam McCarthy. This photo here, former GWS and Freo player in Nathan Wilson, playing for Peel Thunder in the Western Australian Football League. Kicked 4 goals. One of the celebrations. I think this is a very touching way to end this week's podcast. Once again, I reckon the best message to end this on is just speak up. speak to your mates. Even if you don't think that they may be struggling, just let them know you're there for them. I think that's the best way to kind of go out on this.
If you don't want to do that, I just implore you to change. Start little. Start really little. And it's gonna feel a little bit weird, but do one thing. Commit to one thing for a set amount of days. Do it every day. Make sure it's slightly uncomfortable, and keep showing up. And we're always here. So always reach out to us. Make sure you like and subscribe as well. We'll be here next week. And enjoy this round of sport. We'll see you then.